Asian Doll is being accused of cheating on King Von right after his death and somehow walking away with his millions. The claims have followed her for years, especially after fans noticed how quickly things seemed to change after Von died. But what actually happened is a lot messier. Let me break it down. To understand what people are accusing Asian Doll of, you have to go back to the actual timeline of her relationship with King Von, because the order of events matters here. Asian Doll and King Von were in a relationship from 2018 to 2020. It wasn't quiet. They were all over each other's music videos, all over each other's social media, and by most accounts, genuinely a couple in the public eye. But the relationship was rocky, almost from the jump. Eventually, the pair started dating. But when cheating rumors surfaced in 2020, the couple parted ways. That August breakup wasn't some quiet unfollow and move on situation. The No Jumper podcast discussed Von and Asian Doll's breakup, and the host got news from drama sites that the duo allegedly split because Asian Doll caught him cheating. Both of them took it to social media instead of keeping it behind closed doors. Von posted a photo on his Instagram story of a girl sleeping in his bed with a caption about not getting played by the wrong person. Asian Doll didn't sit on that. She implied right back that Von had been messing around with a prostitute. That's the kind of back and forth that was playing out for anyone following either of their pages. Now here's where it gets interesting, because they didn't stay broken up. The pair seemed to rekindle their relationship in October 2020, but Von claimed he was still single. Think about that for a second. They're back around each other, but he's telling people he's not tied down to anybody. That contradiction is basically the entire story of their relationship in one sentence. And that October reconciliation ended up marking the actual end of their relationship for good. Weeks later, everything changed. On November 6, 2020, Von was involved in a confrontation with rapper Quando Rondo in an Atlanta nightclub. And that night, he was shot and killed. He was buried back home not long after. Von was buried in his birthplace of Chicago on November 14, 2020. Asian Doll wasn't standing there when it happened, and she didn't hear it from a press release. She found out about the news after a girl called her from the hospital, and her entire world crumbled. Seeing it confirmed on TV afterward was described as a harsh reality check for her. By her own account, and by outside reporting, the two of them had broken up just days before he died, and it was rough on him. She didn't disappear from his story after that either. In his honor, she got a picture of Von tattooed on the back of her left hand. So right there, you've got the skeleton of the controversy. They were on, then off, then back on, then off again, all in the space of a few months, ending right before he died. That gap between off again and he's gone is exactly the window where every accusation about her moving on too fast or benefiting off his name too fast starts to take shape. It's worth remembering who King Von actually was at this point in his career, because it explains why any woman connected to him became such a lightning rod. Davon Daquan Bennett, known professionally as King Von, was an American rapper and street gangster from Chicago, affiliated with the Black Disciples gang on the city's south side. He'd built a name off telling real stories from his neighborhood, and by late 2020, he wasn't some underground name anymore. He had a debut album out and a growing national audience. Asian Doll wasn't some random name attached to him either. Miss Sharon Jermisha Allen, known professionally as Asian Doll, is an American rapper from Dallas, who was the first female artist to sign with Gucci Mane's 1017 Eskimo Records. She had her own following before Von, and she kept building it during their relationship. On February 14, while they were dating, she released a music video for her track Grandson, in which Von appeared. That video, and a string of others like it, is why so many fans considered them a real couple and not just two rappers who happened to date briefly. The reason this all matters for what comes next is simple. The moment Von died, everyone who'd watched that relationship play out publicly started asking the same two questions. Did she cheat on him or did he cheat on her? And who's actually benefiting off his name now that he's not around to speak for himself? Those two threads, the cheating and the money, are what took over social media within weeks of the funeral. And they haven't really stopped since, because almost immediately, before people even had time to process he was gone, a new wrinkle got thrown into the mix. Rumors started swirling that another woman was pregnant with his child, and that single piece of news cracked open a fight about loyalty, timing, and who actually knew what about Von's life in his final months. That's where things start getting messy. Within months of Von's death, the question of who cheated on who became the centerpiece of the entire online conversation about their relationship. And it came from an unexpected place, his own family. King Von's sister, Kayla B., took to Twitter to reveal that a woman named Skylar was carrying the late rapper's child. That single tweet set everything off. Given the timeline of his public relationship with Asian Doll shortly before he was killed, fans assumed Von had stepped out on their relationship. The math seemed obvious to a lot of people watching. If the two of them were still together or recently split, a baby with someone else looked like proof he'd cheated. But Kayla B pushed back on the whole cheating, framing entirely. In a since-deleted tweet from January, Kayla made clear that Von was single, writing that he wasn't in a relationship with nobody before he died. She went further, saying he wasn't getting back with anybody and was living his life however he wanted, with whoever he wanted. Her point was straightforward. If he wasn't officially with Asian Doll, there was no cheating to speak of. Asian Doll didn't let that stand without a response. She got online to clear the air and stressed that she and Von hadn't been together for months leading up to his death. She explained that she and Von weren't together for months before he died, and that she'd only started speaking to him again after they got booked on the same bill. Her logic followed the same shape as Kayla's. If they weren't a couple, it would have been impossible for him to cheat on her. She put it plainly online, saying that nothing going on affected her because they'd once been deeply in love, and that she'd always carry that. She also made clear that no baby came on her, that his kids came both before and after her, and that she'd made her own choices about that twice. That's two named people, Kayla B and Asian Doll, giving contradicting accounts about the same relationship within the same news cycle. And a third voice entered almost immediately. Kayla B posted videos and pictures from a baby shower, revealing Von was expecting a child with a woman named Skylar Knight. Skylar Knight's pregnancy became the physical proof a lot of fans pointed to when they wanted to argue Von had moved on or never really left other relationships in the first place. Whether or not it counted as cheating depended entirely on which timeline you believed, Kayla's where he was single the whole time, or Asian Doll's where the two of them had genuinely broken up first. Now flip the accusation around, because it didn't stay one-directional for long. Kayla B didn't just defend her brother, she went on offense against Asian Doll directly. Kayla came through with a series of tweets alleging that Asian Doll had cheated on King Von during their relationship. She took it further, alleging that during their relationship, King Von had made Asian get an abortion. Kayla continued, claiming that Von didn't trust Asian before he died, and that she hadn't given money to his mother or his children the way she'd claimed publicly, accusing her of only using his name to look good. Now here's what makes this whole fight so hard to pin down years later. Asian Doll herself, on more than one occasion, has openly admitted Von cheated on her and seemed almost at peace with it. She once wrote online that she remembered catching Von cheating at the beginning of their relationship, saying it left her crying, and confusingly, left him crying too. When a fan pointed out that she'd stayed with him after that, she replied that she'd stayed, and that she'd do it all again if she could. That's a woman who is not hiding from the accusation that infidelity existed in the relationship on his side. What she's consistently pushed back on is the idea that she was the unfaithful one, or that she left him for someone else, or that she was somehow disloyal to his memory. And that's the exact distinction that keeps getting blurred every time this story resurfaces online. Fans conflate there was cheating in this relationship with Asian Doll cheated on him, when her own words paint the opposite picture. She was the one catching him, not the other way around, at least by her own telling. Skylar Knight, for her part, never became a major player in the war of words the way Kayla B and Queen Kima did. Her pregnancy was more of a fact used as ammunition by others than a story she pushed herself. But her name being tied to the timeline right after Von's death is part of why the cheating question exploded. The way it did, it gave people a concrete, undeniable detail to hang the whole narrative on. So by the time Von was in the ground, you had three separate narratives running at once. Kayla B's version, where Von was a free man with no obligations to Asian Doll. Asian Doll's version, where they'd split amicably enough that infidelity wasn't even a relevant question. And the version being pieced together by fans off leaked screenshots and old interviews, where everybody was cheating on everybody and nobody wanted to admit it first. None of that stayed contained to Twitter arguments about who dated who. It spilled into a much longer, much uglier fight about Von's legacy itself. Who got to speak for him, who actually loved him, and who was just writing his name for clout. And the person leading that charge more than anyone else was his own sister. If Asian Doll spent years building a public image as King Von's grieving girlfriend, Kayla B spent almost as long trying to tear that image down piece by piece. And the feud between the two of them didn't cool off with time. It got louder. Years after Von's death, Kayla went on record with claims that reframed the entire relationship as something far less genuine than fans believed. Kayla B claimed that King Von and Asian Doll weren't as close as people think prior to the rapper's death. She didn't stop at implying it. She said Von told her directly. Calling it his exact words, Kayla claimed her brother told her he was using Asian for clout, that he didn't really like her, and that he was just playing along until his music took off. She framed it as a pattern, not a one-off comment. She argued that anybody who knows a Chicago guy knows that's what they do, that a Chicago man will use a woman until she's dry, taking what she's worth, and that's exactly what he did. That's about as blunt an accusation as you can make about your own dead brother's relationship, and it landed exactly the way you'd expect. Fans split down the middle immediately. When DJ Academics shared Kayla B's comments, fans came to the couple's defense, with one writing that Von's best friend was Lil Durk, so he didn't need Asian for clout, insisting Von really did love her. Others weren't as forgiving of Kayla, suggesting she was just hurt about something and covering for it. Asian Doll wasn't going to let that sit unanswered, and she didn't hold back. Days after the clout comments went public, she took to X and posted an emotional message, calling their bond the rawest, longest, and most genuine relationship she'd had, insisting their love didn't depend on their bank balance, and recalling the best memories with a man who loved her out loud. The subtext there is obvious. She was directly rejecting the idea that money or fame had anything to do with why they were together. The two of them also went at each other over pure insults, which tells you how personal this had become by that point. Asian Doll wrote that no woman who needed 365 chemical peels a year to look pretty could make her mad, and Kayla fired back, calling her musty and accusing her of not knowing basic hygiene. Petty as that sounds, it's the surface layer of a much deeper argument about who actually gets to claim Von's legacy, his blood family, or the woman who was in his videos and his bed for 2 years. Kayla went even further into specifics during a live stream, directly disputing that Asian Doll had ever been a real financial presence in Von's inner circle. Asian Doll responded on X, referencing a time Von had beaten someone bloody and knocked their teeth out, seemingly defending the intensity and realness of their relationship. Rather than backing down, Kayla, unmoved, simply said nobody was checking for Asian Doll for real, telling her to stop it. What's notable is that this fight didn't happen once and fade. It kept resurfacing years apart, almost like clockwork whenever Von's name trended again. Every time Asian Doll posted a tribute, Kayla or someone in Von's camp seemed to have something to say about it. Commenters have pointed out, there's a reason she kept milking his name, as they put it, years after his death. Whether that's a fair read of her motives or not, it's clearly the perception. A large chunk of his fan base settled on, and Kayla wasn't the only person in Von's circle throwing that same accusation. It turns out the fight over who got to speak for Von and who was quietly profiting off doing so extended well past his sister, straight into the mother of his own child. If Kayla B represented Von's blood family pushing back on Asian Doll's version of events, Queen Kima represented something different, a woman raising his actual child, watching 2 other women fight over his legacy while she tried to hold on to pieces of it herself. Kima didn't stay out of the Asian Doll conversation either. Asian Doll's tweets about catching Von cheating surfaced right after Kima, the mother of King Von's child, admitted a close associate of the deceased rapper had recently contacted her for sexual favors. That detail alone tells you how tangled this entire circle had become years after Von died. People who were supposed to be mourning him were instead entangled in their own, overlapping dramas involving each other. But Kima's biggest, most serious accusation wasn't really about Asian Doll at all. It was aimed squarely at Kayla B, and it involved something much more concrete than clout or love: Von's actual physical unreleased music. Kima accused Von's sister of destroying his legacy and stealing his hard drive. That's not a vague insult. That's an accusation about literal masters and unreleased recordings, the exact kind of asset that turns into money for whoever controls it after an artist dies. She laid out specifics in a public back and forth. Kima said it was sick, that Von's son had a whole dad helping raise him, while Kayla lied to Von, as if she had no help, claiming Von himself told her he felt sorry for Kayla. because he thought she had no support and didn't realize she was being untruthful. Then came the accusation that actually matters for anyone asking where the money went. Kima said Kayla stole his hard drives with his other music, accused her of trying to destroy his legacy, insisted everything that belonged to Von belonged to his mother, and asked why Kayla, who she said was already rich, would steal from her own brother, calling it sick. Kima kept building on that claim, questioning whether Kayla's motives around managing Von's leftover music were as pure as she presented them. Kima questioned Kayla's loyalty and claimed that whenever Von's music leaked, Kayla was the one who called Empire to have it taken down. She pointedly asked where those missing hard drives actually were. Now, none of this hard drive dispute involves Asian Doll directly. This is Kima versus Kayla, not Kima versus Asian Doll. But it matters enormously to the bigger story because it shows the money and legacy fight over King Von was never a two-woman argument. It was a multi-front war involving his sister, the mother of his child, and his most public ex, all suspicious of each other, all accusing each other of using his name for personal gain, and all doing it in public on Twitter for years after he'd been buried. This is also where the actual business of Von's estate becomes relevant because there was real money at stake and real assets that could be fought over. King Von's net worth stood at about $750,000 at his death in November 2020, and he owned 100% of his master recordings and publishing rights, meaning all revenue from his catalog flowed directly into his estate. That's not a small detail. Plenty of young rappers sign away their masters early in exchange for advance money, but Von never did. His manager was blunt about what that meant for his family going forward. His manager, Jameson Francois, explained that the deals with Empire were commitment projects and that Von owned all his masters, telling DJ Academics that Von hadn't sold his publishing, so everything belonged to him, calling it a blessing from God because his kids and family would be taken care of for the rest of their lives. His management also set up trust funds for his immediate family, and that catalog didn't just sit there. It kept generating money years after his death. The estate released What It Means to Be King in 2022. And Grandson in July 2023, with Grandson debuting at number 2 on the Billboard 200. A posthumous album hitting number 2 on the Billboard 200 is not a small commercial event. That's real, ongoing revenue tied directly to Von's name, years after he was gone. Streaming numbers kept adding to it too. Streaming formed a major share of King Von's earnings, with tracks like Crazy Story continuing to perform. So when you put those two threads together, a catalog that Von fully owned, generating real posthumous income, sitting right next to a very public, very bitter fight between the women in his life over who was loyal and who was cashing in. You can see exactly why the idea of someone taking his millions took hold online. There was money, there was a fight, and there were multiple women, not just one, all accused by somebody of profiting off his name. The question that's left is the one everybody actually clicked play to find out. Did any of that estate, that catalog money, those trust funds ever actually land in Asian Doll's hands? And what does her own financial picture look like today, years removed from the relationship that made her famous in the first place? By the time all the dust settled, the breakup, the baby news, the sister feud, the hard drive accusations, there was one question left standing that all of it had been building toward. If King Von's estate was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and generating real posthumous income through his catalog and trust funds, where did that money actually go? And how much of it, if any, ended up with Asian Doll? Start with what's actually documented about Von's estate structure. His management created trust funds specifically for his immediate family. That phrase, immediate family, is doing a lot of work here. Trusts like that are almost always built around children, parents, and sometimes siblings. They are not typically built around an ex-girlfriend, no matter how public or long-running the relationship was, unless there's a legal claim tied to a shared child, which Von and Asian Doll never had. Multiple sources note that she and Von had no children together. That single fact does more to explain where the money went than anything else in this entire story. Von's estate, built on masters he owned outright and a growing posthumous catalog, was legally structured to flow toward his kids, his mother, and the people with a direct blood or legal tie to him. His manager said as much directly, framing the ownership structure as a blessing specifically for his kids and his family. Kayla B., Queen Kema, as the mother of one of his children, and his other children's mothers. All had actual standing in that structure. Asian Doll did not. So what does Asian Doll's own financial picture actually look like years after the relationship that made her a household name in drill circles? The numbers are modest, and they're her own, not Von's. Estimates place her net worth at around $360,000 as of 2024. Other estimates from different points in her career have put the figure a bit lower or higher. Some sources cite a net worth closer to $500,000, but none of the widely cited figures come anywhere near millions. And none of them are traced back to a King Von inheritance. They're traced back to her own catalog, her own tours, and her own brand deals. Her financial team pointed to her signing with Normac Enterprises and Beecher Boys, Doll Gang, deals that let her keep control of her music while working with experienced people around her as central to her financial path. That doesn't mean Von's death had zero financial impact on her life. Being tied to one of drill music's most beloved fallen artists undeniably kept her name in headlines. Years after their breakup, and headlines translate to streams, to show bookings, to brand interest. Every time Kayla B brought her up, every time a tribute anniversary rolled around, Asian Doll's name trended, and trending in this industry is currency. Even during periods when she was dealing with unrelated controversies, like getting pulled into other artists' beefs over body-selling accusations, her connection to Von kept resurfacing as a talking point that outlets kept covering. But that's a very different thing from directly inheriting his estate or his catalog earnings. The distinction matters, because it's the difference between her name benefited from his memory, and she took his money, the public record, the trust fund set up for immediate family, the total absence of any legal claim through children, the total absence of any court filing or estate dispute naming her, points toward the first, not the second. Kayla B, notably, never actually accused Asian Doll of taking estate money in any of her public statements. Her accusations were about clout, about loyalty, about whether the relationship was ever emotionally real. Her sharpest financial adjacent claim was that Asian hadn't given money to Von's mother or children, the way she'd claimed publicly, which if anything is an accusation that Asian Doll wasn't generous enough with her own earnings toward Von's family, the opposite of the idea that she'd siphoned money away from them. Kayma's accusations, similarly, were never aimed at Asian Doll's bank account. They were aimed at Kayla over hard drives and unreleased music, an entirely separate fight within the same circle over control of Von's creative legacy rather than his cash. So what actually happened, when you strip away the timing and the tabloid framing, is a story about grief expressed messily, in public, by multiple women who all loved, or were connected to the same man, each of them accusing the others of not being genuine enough, of moving on too fast, of using his name the wrong way. Asian Doll caught real cheating from Von early in their relationship, by her own repeated account. She broke up with him days before he died. She got a permanent tattoo of his face, and years later, she's still getting pulled into fights about a relationship that ended before he was even killed. What she didn't do based on everything Von's own family, his co-parent, and his management have put on record is walk away with control of an estate that was legally built to protect his children and his mother. The catalog kept making money, the trust kept the family funded, and Asian Doll kept building her own name, her own numbers, her own catalog, separate from his, the same way she'd insisted through every fight, and every tattoo and every tearful tweet that their love had never been about money in the first place.